Well, sometimes it's easier to show you how the end game is going to go and then show you how you got there. So that's what we're going to do with this. This is the inner Skeg bedding, all right? And effectively what this is for is we need our strips to be able to transition and terminate somewhere, and this is where it's going to be. And it works effectively the exact same way that the stems do, all right? We've already gone through how to make these, but we've done a couple more steps. I'm going to show you what they are, and I actually have this temporarily mounted for it to be glued in place. This is the transom knee I told you that we were going to put on there. Now, for all you salty folks out there who've built boats before, you're laughing and you're saying, it's not a transom knee. But it is. It fits everybody's definition of what it's supposed to do, and it connects this keel line here down to this transom, and that's what a knee does. So there's a reason why it's this small. And I'm going to tell you, because if you're at home saying, well, I'm going to make something bigger and prettier, then it's going to be a mistake. And here's the mistake. This particular boat, is the 17-footer, and this is made for rowing, which means it's very narrow in the back and slimlined all the way up. And because of that, this boat is a little bit different from, say, the 14-footer or the 16-footer. The 14 and 16-footer, this drops right down into a notch, and it effectively works the same way as these, and it's real simple and easy to do, and you don't need this little knee. This one here, the transom comes to such a fine point that I don't want to just glue this down to the end point. I want to have something that's going to hang on there, all right? So I've got this little knee. Now, the reason that it's so small is for a couple reasons. First off, this all needs to be shaped so that as the strips come up, this won't be in the way. All right, that's the first thing, but that would have been easy to get around. The big reason not to do a nice, big, fancy transom knee is because once it's in there, remember, eventually you're going to have to flip this boat over. Fiberglass doesn't like tight corners. It doesn't like sharp corners. It's difficult to get down into. The way this is here, excuse me, once I flip the boat over and I start to fiberglass the inside, and I'm going to put layers across here to make it nice and strong, I can just take and fill in with a little bit of filler right here, and this will completely disappear. So I'll come right down here, add filler along here, and make this really nice and strong, right? Because remember, we're going to have a little bit of a skeg coming up here, a little bit of a fin, and if it gets whacked, we want to make sure it's secured both inside and outside the boat. All right, so I got a little transom knee here. I've got a brad nail that is hiked up, just about an inch inside the transom so that I can put a bungee cord on it, and that bungee cord is hooked down here, which is going to hold this in place while the epoxy dries. That's all we're looking to do. Remember, epoxy doesn't need real tight clamping, right? So as long as I've got a good joint here and I've got a good amount of epoxy both here and on the top side here, that'll dry real nice. I've got another bungee cord up front here simply to hold that down. Later on, before we start working on this, we're going to take the hot glue and put blocks in here to hold this in place so that as we shape this and then we go ahead and put our strips up to it, it'll be in place, and then when it comes time to take them out, we just knock them out with a hammer and they'll come right out of there. Okay, so now that I've showed you the end game, let me show you how we're going to get there. All right, so I glued up another one here so that you can see the steps to making this happen. It's a pretty simple little process. I've got a little piece of ash here that was laying around. I've got this sitting in place and push the ash up behind it. And I'm going to go ahead and draw that line so that now I know the angle coming up off the transom that's going to hold this together. Yeah, it's a curve. Don't worry about the curve because you're going to be so small. It's not really something you need to worry about here. So then, you just want to come up about 1.5 inches this way and about 1.5 inches this way or so and draw yourself a line. You can make it a little curved if you want, but I don't think it's terribly important. You can do that with the sander a little bit later. And we're just going to cut this out and then we're going to glue it onto here. All right, well, to make this happen, we are going to use this most excellent product called Gorilla Glue. Wouldn't use it everywhere in a boat, but places like this, it's wonderful. Only downside to it is it's urethane based, so it's going to expand a little bit. And I'll show you how we're going to deal with that in a second. So because of that, if you read the bottle, you'll see on hardwoods that it wants you to dampen the two surfaces that are going to be connected to each other. All right, so I've done that. A little squeeze out here. Not too much, because again, this stuff will expand something a whole bunch. So spread it on there. Generous but not oozing. Okay. And then get it where you want it. Mark the piece beforehand if you have to. Alright, once you got it where you want it, we're going to have to connect it in 3 different places to hold this down. So we're going to have to connect it towards the back here and in the front. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. So I'm going to take a stapler and I'm going to staple it right there. Alright. And then I'm going to flip it over. Make sure I'm going to move a piece out to the side here so that the bottom staple don't get in the way. Squeeze it together and staple. And the last thing I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't rock is I'm going to drop a staple right down here in the corner. Okay, well there you go. So that'll hold it. So the last thing I do here is slap a little spring clamp on the end to make sure that it stays straight. Well, I've got a little bit of thickened epoxy here, and I mean just barely thickened. I'm going to use it as a glue. And remember, with hardwood, it's best used as a glue when it can saturate. Now you can see I'm a little bit more grubby than I usually am. I've got certain shirts that I set aside specifically for using epoxy, and you're going to hear me say this a few times in the DVD. I'm trying to save your favorite shirt. So, you know, when you come home from work and you've got a pinpoint Oxford on and you think, boy, I can bang that out and get that done quick, don't do it. Trust me, I know from where I speak. Your favorite team jersey, don't do it. And set aside a shirt that you don't really care about. All right. So I've got this mixed up. And I'm going to put this down just a second so I can talk to you about one more thing. It's a lot easier to take care of some of the fine details now before it goes inside the boat. And you're going to see, looking at the end here, that I've actually rounded this up to a point. So this is all sanded and rounded up. All the sides are sanded smooth, the bottom sanded nicely. The reason I do this now is because it's a whole lot simpler to get it done now than once it's in the boat and I'm flipped over and I have to sand with my thumb. Right now I can use machines or hand sanders or palm sanders. I'm not going to be able to do that once it's in the boat. So take care of all that now. When it's in the boat, you don't want a sharp edge down there. Round it off. And now we're just going to put that thing in there. This is your last chance to make sure that your forms are doing what they're supposed to do and all your notches are right. So, you know, dry fit this in, go down the end of the boat, look down, make sure it looks straight to you. Because if it's not straight now, you're going to be rolling around in circles later. All right? So if you did all your job lining up all of your frames and forms, you should be good. Should be good to go. All right, so now I'm just going to take this epoxy and I am going to spread it right here on the tip. Be liberal about it. And down inside here, and I made a little mark so I know about how far down I'm going. All right, and then I'm going to spread it on the mating surfaces inside. So I've already gone in, and where all that Gorilla Glue expanded, I went in with a razor knife and I cut it all out. So I have a nice clean joint in there that matches up nicely with my transom. So again, don't be skimpy here. Make sure everything's in there and everything's good and soaked. After it's on, then we'll go back in and we'll take a little rag and clean it up. But for right now, we want to make sure that we get a really good connection there. All right. Alright, everything seems to be about where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to take my bungee cord, wrap it up right around the nail, hook it from underneath. Now I'm going to kind of dive down here, make sure that it looks centered on the boat. And it does. There we go. So the line on the pattern should go right up to the center of this. And now I'm going to take my other bungee cord up here. I'm gonna wrap that back around just to hold this in place. I'll take care of a more permanent solution for that later. And then I'll probably grab another bungee cord and wrap it around here to hold this down. But this is certainly being held strong enough so that glue's gonna dry. You can see it's dripping down there. I'm just gonna go grab a rag, I'll clean that up. But whatever you do, make sure when you're done messing around with this thing and you're ready to leave it, make sure that everything's squared off. And I will see you in about a day when that dries, because we can't touch the boat from here on in until this is dry, because you don't really want that to get messed up with you.